you doing? I wanted to tackle two of your things. Um, I had this really cool theory when I was feeding off some friends the other day about evolution, but I'll get to that. The one I wanted to tackle is the idea of astrology as nonsense. So I'm a scientist. I have degrees in behavioral psychology, neuroscience, evolutionary biology, and I've done a bit of stuff with astrophysics. I love science. And so I'm able, like, in ways, because I've got, I suppose, these different perspectives to connect dots in different ways. So I guess I'll first off by asking a couple of questions, just simple questions. Like, I mean, you can say yes or no, or you can elaborate. But this is to sort of create a base for my opinion. So I guess, do you believe that we as human beings biologically produce an electromagnetic field?
An electromagnetic field. We radiate infrared radiation in
We
the form of
also
heat.
we
Yeah.
also our hearts beat and actually produce a measurable electromagnetic field. So our
No,
hearts send more
that's an
information to our
electric.
brain.
That's an electric field.
Electromagnetic. But feel free to Google that. Like, check it out. Like, we produce a measurable electromagnetic field. This is why when you sit, say, you fall asleep with your laptop on your chest, that also produces an electromagnetic field, and they can conflict, and that's why it can cause sleep issues. That's why we tend not to have, various electronics around us when we sleep.
Well,
Like, we do have a measurable
well,
electromagnetic field.
what you're talking about is how we give off IR radiation due to heat. We give off thermal heat, which is IR radiation, and
That's one
IR
thing we give off.
radiation falls under the EM spectrum, but it's not the same kind of electromagnetic field as like the Earth.
It
It's so
is. So
negligible, it doesn't really do anything.
okay, so I worked in tow with a company called HeartMath in Canada, and they mapped the human heart and they measured the electromagnetic field that the heart produces. There's even a documentary
Yeah,
that they
yeah,
did with the
absolutely.
direct.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
so
And just so
we
you
have,
know,
yeah.
every single object, all objects, every object with a non-zero temperature gives off thermal radiation and therefore an EM field. Everything,
Right.
absolutely
Okay.
everything
So yeah,
in existence. So
yeah. So like
it's
that's
negligible and it's really a non-starter. It's not unique to humans in any way, shape, or form.
no, it's not unique to humans. Like any living biological machine gives off an electromagnetic field.
No,
Anything which
anything, any physical object at a non-zero temperature.
no, you're misunderstanding.
No, I am reading this directly off of a pub.
No, you're misunderstanding. Like you're
everything gives
looking
off
up
All
radiation.
objects with non-zero temperature give off thermal radiation,
Yeah.
which
yes,
is
thermal radiation.
which
I'm not
is
talking about thermal
IR
radiation. I'm talking
radiation,
about
which
an
is EM
electromagnetic field.
spectrum, which is electromagnetic radiation. It's an electromagnetic field around anything giving off of IR. Anything. Anything.
So unless you've spent some time reading the papers and the stuff that's come out
Which I
from
have.
you haven't even let me finish speaking. No, you have not. You don't even know the company I'm talking about. I'm talking about the company HeartMath. They specialize in this. But that's beside the point. This is what I was using to create my perspective around astrology, is that every organism has a measurable electromagnetic energy that we can see. The heart, if you look at heartmath.org, they talk about energetic communication and how the heart is a proponent of electromagnetic energy, right? So the human body, in that sense, we can argue for days about the specifics, but that's not what I'm here to do. So the human body produces things. We know that those things can have an effect on the environment, and those things in the environment can have an effect on us. All right, so astrology is the study of the movement, astronomy is the study of the movement of celestial bodies. Astrology tries to create correlation between the movement of those bodies and personality traits. Now, if we understand that when you look at a heart on a monitor, on an ECG, you've got the initial beat of the heart and a ripple afterwards. Those ripples can directly relate to emotional statuses. and those emotional statuses
No.
are actually...
A QRS complex is not directly related to an emotional status.
Do you want me to sit here and play you an entire documentary?
Definitely not.
Exactly. So can you just, I suppose, suspend disbelief for a moment and assume that I have done my research into this?
Well, that would be me not being a very good skeptic.
But you can be skeptical without necessarily being dismissive.
Right.
So I'm going
When
to
I
read
hear a
something. I would
claim
like
like
to
a
read something real
QRS
quick.
complex can tell you about that, you can read just the QRS complex and then figure out the emotional state. That's nonsense. An elevated heart rate. I don't know what about the QRS complex you're reading. What about it? If it's the specific depolarization of the nodes, if it's the rate at which the heart is beating or whatever. But an elevated heart rate could be because of a multitude of factors. It wouldn't just
I'm
be
not talking
because
about
of
the rate of
anger. It
the
could
heart.
be because of
No,
embarrassment, or it could be
I'm not
because of
talking about the rate
exercise.
of the heart.
The depolarization of those QRS complexes could be because of a structural abnormality, a congenital birth defect. It could be because you snorted a bunch of cocaine. It could be because you just woke up. It could be a fight or flight thing.
I'm not
It
talking
is
about the rate of the
so
heart.
nondescript.
No, I'm not talking about the rate of the heart. Like, the rate of the heart absolutely can be affected by those things you said. And the actual
and
beat.
yeah.
Yeah.
I did that,
Yeah.
and then I talked about the depolarization of the nodes, which
Yeah.
is what that QRS complex is about, and
And I'm saying that
repolarization of the nodes.
partner... Hang on, where are we?
Hey Peterson,
I'll
I'd
bring it
love
up.
to read something to you real quick.
Okay.
So his source right now, this heartmath.org. Would you like to know what their mission is?
Something that has to do with things.
Yeah, it's cute. HeartMath Institute is to help people bring their physical, mental, and emotional systems into balanced alignment with the heart's intuitive guidance.
Okay.
So I don't know what kind
Whatever
of
that
an
means.
intuition a heart has, but we'll go ahead and continue. This unfolds the path for becoming heart-empowered individuals who choose the way of love, which they demonstrate through compassion, care, and well-being for themselves, others, and planet Earth. Oh, by the way, they have subscription models, a store,
Oh,
large
absolutely.
donation signs, all sorts of things to
Oh,
bring
okay.
in money
Okay.
for
Can I
their
just stop
organization
you for a second?
based off of
I'm
the
not saying
concept of
I
a
approve
heart
of what the heart
letting
math...
you learn how to love
Please
and being
stop.
heart empowered. I don't really find this to be a
Sounds like
reputable
Gwyneth Paltrow.
source of information.
Oh, okay. Can you stop for a second and just listen? Just for 30 seconds. I'm not saying that I approve
You don't like
of what
your
the
own
heart...
source?
Oh my God, can you learn to shut your mouth so somebody else can say something? It's the only way you're going to learn to understand where I'm coming from and
Go
my
ahead.
perspective. I
Go
don't
ahead.
necessarily approve
Go
and
ahead.
believe everything the Heart Math Institute says, right? Yeah, they've got a subscription model. They're all over the place. But elements of what research they have done, this is how we find and innovate new things, is like you have people who are confounded in conspiracy, but there is some truth based in that conspiracy. This kind of institute is pretty appalling for a lot of reasons and pretty out there for a lot of reasons, but there are some truths in the research that they've done. And some of those truths have been researched into and looked into and peer reviewed by other institutions. Now, I don't want to spend and sit here in silence typing away trying to find those other institutions, but the science that has been presented to me that they have done, the basic science that they have done, and I'm not talking about the science that they've manufactured up to make it look like science so they can sell a product. I understand that there are institutions that do this, but I also understand the other people that I have met that have gone, no, this institution's bullshit, done the research, done the experimentation, and gone, okay, well, this is true, but the rest of the stuff is bullshit. So you can sit there and belittle me for the sources of information that I have, and that doesn't give any credence to the quality of your argument or your debate. Like, I came here to have a discussion about something, not be belittled by people.
Okay.
I did not
So
belittle
let's
you.
just-
I question the validity of your
Right.
source.
So
It
let's
was
just
how-
go back
it was
to
the company
let's
that
just
did
talk
it.
about your claims then. So tell me how a QRS complex can give you information about a person's emotional state or whatever.
So the idea, like it's not necessarily what I believe, but the idea behind this was that they were able to interpret the emotional state of an individual. And you can tell that their claims got preposterous to when they were turning around and saying, we could see the emotional state 3 seconds before somebody received that stimuli. Like, oh yes, the heart can tell the future. Congratulations, it's bullshit. But my point is that they were claiming that the emotional state of a person is emitted essentially in that magnetic field. But that was a segue from my original point and what I was trying to, I suppose, get at when we were tackling the subject of astrology, is that
Go for it.
Those planets have considerable electromagnetic fields, considerable IR radiation fields, as Matt pointed out. Like these things have an effect on our planet's electromagnetic sphere.
No, they don't.
So you're telling me that a CME or coronal mass ejection doesn't have an effect on our electromagnetic sphere around our planet?
You said
astrology
planets, not
astrology
stars.
deals with constellations, not even stars, constellations, which in many cases are formed of galaxies that are so far away that they do not have any actual effect on us through our planet's EM field. That's
Absolutely.
silly.
Absolutely. Okay. No, I agree. Like those stars that are galaxies away don't have an effect on our EM field. I'm talking about.
Oh, neither do planets within our solar system.
The sun does?
No. You said planets. You didn't say the sun, and you said their magnetic field affects us. It certainly does not. A coronal mass ejection can do things like partially ionize Earth's upper atmosphere. It could theoretically cause a blackout in our country. It could do X, Y, Z things.
Causes a blackout?
What?
Do you know how it causes a blackout?
Specifically, not really.
It's a rubber band effect. So if you imagine...
specifically, not really.
It's a rubber band effect. So if you imagine for a moment that the EM field around our planet, it's shaped, and it's for lack of a better word, reactive. Like it will absorb radiation, and it will take that pressure or that radiation or whatever you want to call it, and then bounce back after it's received that radiation, kind of like a rubber band. So it's receiving that energy, protecting against it, and then I can't think of the words to explain it. I'm not an astrophysicist, so
I can tell you what NASA says. I can tell you exactly what NASA says about it.
Please.
NASA says it can CMEs can jostle Earth's magnetic field, which can impair radio transmissions and increase radio static in Earth's ionosphere. It says nothing about like rubber banding or anything like that. It does say that it causes surges in electrical currents, which overload power grids, which can cause widespread blackouts. But no rubber banding effects.
How does it create that surge? It creates that surge by creating an increase in the electromagnetic ionization in the atmosphere due to a high fluctuation.
It actually says jostling Earth's magnetic field. That's the word NASA uses. I don't know exactly what that means, but that's the word NASA uses.
But I guess you look at the moon. The moon affects our own gravitational movements. So every celestial body in our solar system has an impact on every other celestial body.
You could say that, but when it comes to the electromagnetic fields that come from other planets and from gravity, we have an inverse square law. So by the time any of that gets here, the effect is completely negligible. So what sounds like is what I'm kind of hearing is that you're appealing to things in astronomy to validate concepts of astrology. And I think that that's totally silly because sort of in the end, this is just going to come down to what happens in the environment affects us. And sometimes some of the things in the environment have to do with something that has a cosmic origin. But the only two things that are going to be significant in that are the moon and the sun. Right? Or if you're a dinosaur, an asteroid, right? But here's the problem. What the hell about the Taurus constellation is going to get us any of that information, right? It's complete there's no explanatory value in interpreting the positions of stars that are tens of thousands of light years away in some cases in the pattern they make in the sky. I agree that like that the tides on Earth have noticeable effects on the Earth and can therefore have these like very weirdly connecting consequences. I don't think that the full moon actually entices people to change their behavior or anything like anything silly like that. Like I could make an astrology argument right now. More crimes may be committed during a full moon. But why is that? It's because there's more natural light during a full moon, or maybe it's the other way around. When there's a new moon, more crimes are committed because it's darker out. Now, does that mean that the moon is guiding people to commit more crimes? Not really. Not really.
I would also challenge you to tell me how even a minuscule fluctuation, even a massive fluctuation, how would a massive fluctuation in the EM field of our planet cause like personality trait shifts over a global birth, right? Everybody born under this, how would they have personality trait differences that correlate to very specific personality traits through their life uniformly over the entirety of that day? It makes no sense to me.
Of course, it makes no sense to you because we don't understand it. Like I don't understand it. It could or could not. Like that's the point. Is I suppose science is about exploring the possibilities, not denying any of them. Like
I think science is more about discovering and observing phenomenon and then testing them, but that's just me.
yeah, but it's also about exploring possibilities. The possibility of what could happen if I decided to expose substance A with substance B. Like, yes, at the moment we have no uh, real science or medical proof or even standing to say that any celestial body or effect of electromagnetic field or even the simple effect of light from a star 10,000 light years away has any effect on anybody's personality or ability to think or behave. But this is one of those things that I suppose has been around since the Paleolithic or Neolithic periods when it comes down to religion and I suppose you look at the idea of gender roles throughout society in those time periods. Like, well, I'm not talking about today's modern bullshit gender roles. I'm talking about the idea of a shaman was considered a gender role in tribal Neolithic times, and those shamans weren't often decided on based on their ability to administer medicine. They were often decided upon based on when they were born, what celestial sign they were born under, because obviously in those time periods there was a lot of focus on, the sun, the light, stars, because they were believed where. Well, that was the foundation of religion for a lot of those tribes. Is they had a lot of focus towards those things that they didn't understand, so they created an understanding, and the best way they did that was through religion. So I suppose that we have that foundation, that idea there throughout history. And I mean, it absolutely could 100% just be wrong and be hokum, but I think it would be amiss if we didn't discuss or investigate the possibility. And I don't think that, we've looked into this and we've found it to be negligible or nothing. But I think as we progress in our capabilities scientifically, we should do the just thing and maybe utilize and see what else we can find and continue to question what we know, because that's what we do best. Is we always question what we know. We continued to question that the earth was flat and eventually found out it wasn't. But if we'd stopped questioning that the earth was flat, we may never have decided to actually find out that it was until much later. So continuing questioning.
That's not quite how that worked. That's not quite.
Well, I mean, you can argue, you can argue specifics and semantics if you want, but the point is that our ability to continue to question is what gives us the ability to find and discover new things. And I think that's the thing. Like, shooting down the potential idea that something is that we don't really know that much about, that we have not, we don't have that much proof against.
And our questioning and observations led to astronomy that superseded astrology and put astrology in a in the label of pseudoscience.
Yeah, I mean, astrology doesn't like what I have not heard once was like a predictive model that astrology is capable of. It seems to just be post hoc rationalizations about events and trying to find a correlation between something that goes on, some cosmic event or whatever, and then what happens here on Earth. But that certainly isn't science. In fact, that kind of is by the definition pseudoscience, because pseudoscience, like its modern interpretation, is when you like seek out the evidence and then build a narrative around the evidence rather than predicting what the evidence should be in a very specific way. Another like big problem I see with this is like the idea of, it's like you're saying like, well, it shouldn't be shot down because like we don't know, like it could be effective, we just don't know. It's like, well, we can have prior, how do I want to say this without sounding too Bayesian, like we do have pretty reasonable ways of figuring out what is and what is not worth investigation. So like, for example, the statement that smoking causes lung cancer isn't really a very controversial statement, right? But the problem is not everybody that smokes gets cancer. In fact, most people that smoke don't get lung cancer. And most people that get lung cancer aren't smokers. So it's virtually impossible to say that this specific person got lung cancer because they smoke, right? We have good correlations, but correlations don't tell you which specific events will unfold and which specific events have unfolded necessarily, right? And this is something that's pretty cut and dry and that we know definitely does have an effect, which is lung cancer, right? There aren't a huge number of variables going on here. Now, if we now introduce the idea of, the activities of planets that are billions of miles away or stars that are hundreds or thousands of light years away or the sun or whatever, how much like thinking about the lung cancer example, how much confidence could we possibly place in the ability to take cosmic events and the arrangements of objects in the universe and use that to describe events that are happening here on Earth? Practically zero.
But under your own logic, like with the lung cancer model, like there are people who smoke who get lung cancer, and people who don't smoke who get lung cancer, and vice versa. So the direct there's, as you said, there's not really a direct correlation, but we can anticipate that smoking will increase your chances of lung cancer. So under that logic, like we have a history that we can examine of behavior and a history of consistence through like celestial bodies and celestial movement that we can then correlate to that behavior. So, like, I mean, personally,
I'm not aware of one single example.
Well, there hasn't been one. That's my point. Like, no one's bothered to look.
Can I ask you one last question?
I don't personally believe in astrology. I just enjoy the debate, and I enjoy being devil's advocate. So, like, but I guess the point there is that, like, what you're frowning at the fact that I enjoy the debate?
I feel like you backtracked several 100,000 light years because it really sounded like you were a pretty strong proponent of astrology, and now it just kind of sounds like you're like, well, I was just trying to.
Like, I can argue.
I was just role playing, guys. Was it good for you? It was good for me.
Home about something. Like, you can give me any subject, and I'll argue the opposition for it absolutely, easily. Like, give me any subject, I'll argue against you for it.
Whether or not I should keep you in here.
Fine, throw me out.
Okay.
Doesn't